gentlemen, welcome to the final few presentations here. We have from the Canadian Securities Exchange, VP Business Development, Mr. James Black. I've known James for a number of years here. He's done a phenomenal job in helping raise the profile of the Canadian Securities Exchange, which of course is home to a few companies that you've seen and heard today, Abacus and NextGen Metals among them. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the CSE, James Black.
Well, thanks for your attention today, folks. It's been a pretty diverse show, and just so you know, this presentation will be focused mainly on what we're doing for investors and what we're doing for companies in the public market space. So thanks for the kind introduction. We've had a good run here the past few months in this sector, this medical marijuana, or this is called the marijuana sector. Brought on a lot of interesting companies to our exchange that are now trading on the CSE and bringing a lot of trade volume to the exchange. So again, if you're a company, you'll be interested to know that we're open for business. We're happy to have you no matter what business you're in. As long as it's not anything too crazy or illegal. And if you're an investor, we want you to be aware of some of the things that we've done recently to open up market access to the CSE, an exchange that does cater to earlier stage companies. So I think I just set the table, but again, if anyone here runs a public company, plans to run a public company, if you don't mind sitting through this presentation for the next 5 to 6 minutes, I think you might benefit from some of the insights. And again, if you're an investor and trade through your own discount brokerage or have a brokerage account, maybe you run into some of the companies here today that are trading on the exchange and want to know more. So this table set, real basic. We used to be called the CNSX. We just recently rebranded to the CSE back in January. This was an amalgamation of CNSX and Pure Trading, which was another one of our platforms. And what you see a lot in the exchange place is new entrants, more complexity, people introducing new marketplaces, and we decided why not turn at least two into one and simplify what's happening in this space, lower the cost for those who are dealers, and make the investing public have a simpler time trying to understand what's happening in the marketplace. So, as some of you know, we do compete basically with the TSX Venture Exchange for listings business, and that's where we focus a lot of our business development activities in trying to bring earlier stage, younger companies, small and micro cap companies to the public market. And it's been working out for us. We've recently hit 220 listings, which is obviously our highest number to date, and it's a growing market. We're happy to be bringing a lot of Vancouver-based companies onto the exchange. And for those who care, or those who pay attention to our market access side of things, we just recently announced that we are now a recognized qualified foreign exchange for the purposes of OTC markets in the U.S. So I've got the press release and I can share that with you after the presentation. And it's not just a bunch of banks. We're not owned by a bunch of Bay Street people. We're actually owned by some real entrepreneurs. We call ourselves the Exchange for Entrepreneurs. And we have that confidence because we're owned by people like Ned Goodman and Tom Caldwell, who are true entrepreneurs, people who've built businesses, who've funded startup companies, who really know the space and lend their expertise to what we're doing on a daily basis. And as I mentioned, we're on pace for a record year this year. The CSE message is getting out there. People are understanding the real benefits of this exchange, the place it has in the ecosystem. 220 new issuers on the exchange, and 193 of those are companies. So while we do list some bonds, we have some structured products, it's earlier stage companies coming to the exchange, doing their thing. We have a diversity of issuers. Yes, we've got the growing, emerging marijuana sector, I guess you could call it. But like any junior exchange in Canada, you'd expect there's a good representation of mining issuers, but also good representation of technology issuers, of which most of our around we'd say 20 million average market cap. And we're really proud of that. We're proud of the fact that it's not just resource juniors, but actually some really good Vancouver-based tech companies that found their home here on CSE, including Resas Services and Generate Digital Media. Again, we mentioned this, and I guess we're still defining the name of the sector. Some people are calling it biopharma, some people call it life sciences. I'll just call it the marijuana sector, because I think that's the most recognizable thing. Great representation. We've had a lot of clients come on board over the past 6 months that are in this space, that are exploring the space. Some were started as marijuana sector-based companies, and some of them are now reconfigured mining companies with new focuses. And I'll get into a little more information on that later in the presentation as to how we're bringing those companies on board. But let's touch on a real key point here. Why do companies come and list on the CSE? You got to go to the core of our model, which is based on disclosure first, disclosure so the investors and the people out there making the investment decisions have all the information they need, but staying out of the business merit review side. As an exchange, we don't want to come into your boardroom and say, this is what you should do, this is how you should run a business. We want to make sure you're complying with the highest level of regulatory policies that we set in Canada, and make sure your disclosure is up to date and regular and honest. And that's what investors need for them to make an investment decision. Everything else, management needs to be spending their time working on the business, building value, and not spending their time going in between an exchange review, trying to define what their business is, and proving what they're doing is worthwhile. The symptom of this model is pretty clear. We're allowed to offer a lower fixed cost regime for our issuers because we're not spending all the time going back and forth with the companies. It's pretty simple. So just to illustrate the model in more detail, just visually, it's file and go. So you're meeting the rules, you're putting your news out there, you're closing your deals, and the investing public is interacting with you, they're making their buy or sell decision. As an exchange, we're not coming into your boardroom and telling you what you're doing is right or wrong. The investing public is very good at telling you what you're doing, and they vote with their stock decisions. And again, for those in the room who are running companies or running public companies, you can look at our fee schedule, compare it to the other options that exist in Canada, and there's a definite savings there. This is a symptom of the model. It's the fact that we don't have to staff dozens of people in our compliance department to tell you if you're doing a good job or not. So, and I touched on this, and again, this is more focused, and maybe some investors have picked up on this, but we've got a lot of companies that are coming to the exchange via change of business. So, junior mining company has decided or identified a new opportunity. And our position is such that if the company has the requisite shareholder approval, if they put out the adequate amount of disclosure, and if they come to us and provide us the full disclosure that we can review on a basic level to make sure that everything's there that we're comfortable with, we're happy with them being on the exchange. We're happy welcoming that business to the CSE to continue their life as possibly a new company. In this case, we're seeing a lot of these marijuana sector companies. We're quite fine with that. And as you can see with companies like Supreme Pharmaceuticals, Abatis, Lexaria, they're going about their business, and they're really creating new shareholder value for their investors, which maybe they couldn't have done 6 months ago based on where they were. And I'll touch again on the regulation that surrounds our marketplace. There's no lack of regulation. There's no shortcuts on the CSE. Our model doesn't circumvent anything that any other company would have to do with respect to IROC regulation, OSC, BCSC regulation. We're seen the same way under the Tax Act. So all the securities that you hold of CSE listed companies, that's TFSA and RSP eligible. So with that respect, there's a lot of the same parallels you could draw to other exchanges when it counts with regulation. And in fact, someone said this the other day in an article, people are coming here to avoid paperwork, and it's far from the truth. In fact, we require our companies to file what's called a monthly disclosure report, and that report's there for investors, and it's also good discipline for companies to come and tell the market what they're doing on a regular basis. It's not a financial report, but it's there to provide the investing public with an idea of what the company is doing on a day-to-day basis, which we think is important. For everyone involved, market access is obviously the key part of any stock exchange. How do you get quotes and how do you trade? So we've done a few things recently. We've got an arrangement now with Google where we are the only Canadian stock exchange with real-time stock information on their platform. A lot of Stockwatch users I talked to today, we're all on Stockwatch, real-time data. Please can subscribe to that data. And all the other regular sources of quotes that you've probably gotten used to using. Online trading is expanding at a rapid clip. We've got 10 of the 13 major discount brokers in Canada connected. Scotia iTrade, Qtrade, all the big ones that you're used to using, with the exception of our friends at TD Waterhouse and BMO, who are still getting their act together on that stuff. So I put up this chart, the trading chart. This represents the last 5 years of trading, and if you can't see it, it's just a measure of volume, value, and the number of trades on the exchange. And the number's gone up appreciably in the past few months. So what do we attribute that to? It hasn't been the 40% mining stocks. It's probably been the 5% marijuana sector stocks that have been trading on the exchange. And that's a show of what's drawing interest in the investor crowd, investor community. There's no other way of sugarcoating it. And frankly, it's good news. I mean, it goes to show that the investing public is out there. You put a story out there that's interesting to them, and they'll come and trade, and they'll access our marketplace. So March alone was our record month in trading for us, and this past month would have been a record month had it not been for March. And again, we've seen a lot of companies come to us, not just by listing on the CSE as our first destination, but coming over from other exchanges, specifically the TSX Venture. And we've been happy to accommodate that business where possible, apply our model, let them change their business if they have the requisite approvals from shareholders and have the adequate disclosure, and bring them on board. We're happy to have them. So just to recap real quick, we've been in business for 11 years. We aren't an overnight story. The CSE, formerly the CNSX, formerly the CNQ. We're an exchange that wanted to build a model that worked for investors, worked for companies, worked for the early stage investing ecosystem. And we find that we have a great home here in Vancouver because of just the environment that we have around funding and supporting these companies. So I'm not surprised to see what we have here today with this crowd that has a genuine interest in these types of companies and the possibilities they hold. I'm not surprised to see that we have 5 of our own companies here, telling that story, because this is a great one for them. So thanks for your time. I'm at the booth number 1. If you haven't had a chance to talk yet today, I'm happy to chat. And please enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for your attention.